Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're exploring a seriously fascinating interpretation of spiritual progression, and it frames our journey exactly like leveling up in a video game. It's based on a deep dive into the Quran, specifically Surah Ash-Shura, chapter 42, verse 38. Now, our source text offers this really compelling blueprint for how we grow, how we communicate with the divine, and how we actually interact with the world. So get ready, because this is going to challenge some deeply held assumptions about what it literally means to be on a spiritual path. Okay, let's dive right into this by addressing a major problem we face today. The source text suggests that, in our eagerness to be deeply spiritual, we often completely bypass the foundational work. We try to jump straight into the advanced stages without putting in that initial effort. It is exactly like trying to play level 2 of a video game without ever beating level 1. You just don't have the skills or the tools necessary to succeed, and you end up totally confused and frustrated. So we really have to ask ourselves, are we skipping the first level of our own spirituality?
So let's look at section 1, the spiritual level up, mastering the prerequisites.
Because think about it, you can't build a house without a solid foundation, right? And you definitely can't reach advanced spirituality without mastering the absolute basics. According to the text, level 1 involves 3 major steps. First up is deep self-reflection, which means stopping heinous sins and gross indecencies. Second, we have to gain control over our emotions, and that critically includes forgiving the people who make us angry. And third, responding positively to the world. It's only after mastering self-control, forgiveness, and positive engagement that we are genuinely ready to level up. Moving right along to section 2, the power of consultation, navigating the inner voice. All right, so assuming we've actually cleared level 1, we encounter the primary text for level 2, which is embedded right here in verse 38. It describes those who respond to their Lord and attend to their prayers, who conduct their affairs by mutual consultation. Now, here is the really fascinating part. The very chapter this verse belongs to is famously named Shura, which literally translates to consultation. The text is clearly signaling to us that mutual consultation isn't just some nice suggestion. It's a totally mandatory mechanic for level 2. This verse actually poses a really deep puzzle that the source text unpacks beautifully. When we face dilemmas in life, we naturally seek answers. But when those answers arrive as an intuition or just a gut feeling, are they coming directly from God, or are they just bubbling up for our own subconscious minds? It's a huge distinction. Well, let's follow the logic here. If God were answering us directly in our minds, we would logically all get the exact same answers to universal questions, right? And if that were the case, God wouldn't need to instruct us to consult with one another. We'd already have the objective truth. Therefore, the source concludes that our individual inner voice is actually just our subconscious answering. And because it's our subconscious, well, it naturally varies from person to person. Following our individual blind intuition all on its own isn't divine. It's actually pretty dangerous. So the solution to that danger is the directive to conduct our affairs by mutual consultation. This acts as a massive safeguard. By bringing our differing, highly individualized subconscious intuitions together, we can cross-reference our inner feelings. We debate, we discuss, and collectively, we navigate so much closer to the actual truth than any single one of us could alone. It's like putting together a giant puzzle where everyone holds a different piece. Which brings us to section 3, responding through the world, decoding the first task of level 2. Let's look back at the very beginning of that verse for a second. The text emphasizes responding to their Lord as the absolute primary task. Notice the specific order here. It says respond to their Lord and then mentions attending to prayers. So the very first action required in level 2 isn't prayer or any specific ritual just yet. It is the simple act of responding. And just think about the linguistic logic of the word responding. You literally cannot respond to someone unless they have communicated with you first. The source text points out that this inherently means God is initiating communication. This initial call isn't random. It's seen as a spiritual gift, a calling earned precisely because of the hard work done mastering level 1. But because we so often skip level 1, we rarely even recognize this call when it happens. Now, since God isn't literally calling our individual names out loud from the sky, the source speculates on how this communication actually happens. The text suggests that God speaks to us through the world and through the circumstances and the people we encounter every single day. Therefore, we have to properly respond to the world and to others. When we respond with kindness, justice, and positive action to the people right in front of us, we are, in effect, responding back to God. This means engaging positively with the world is a hard prerequisite even before we step onto the prayer mat. All right, moving into section 4. Orientation versus tribalism, the illusion of religious conversion. So, if we're supposed to respond to God by engaging with the world, what does that actually look like in practice? The text asks a really direct question. Does responding to God mean calling people to a specific religion, like Islam? We so often just assume that God wants everyone to follow one specific religious brand, and that conversions should be the ultimate goal, right? Something to celebrate. But our source text challenges this assumption head on. Okay, here is the absolute bomb realization from the text. Genuine spiritual orientation is about living a life with God at the center. It's generic, it's universally helpful, and it is entirely for our own benefit, because God doesn't actually need our beliefs. On the flip side, pushing religious conversion just to boost your group's stats, that is described as worldly tribalism. There's absolutely nothing divine in just expanding a group's numbers. The text uses this fantastic analogy. Demanding everyone join one specific religious brand is as absurd as the Lord of the universe demanding everyone only use iPhones. It basically reduces the divine to a worldly brand manager, which is wild to think about. To impartially break down this worldly phenomenon, the text highlights three main reasons why this kind of religious tribalism thrives. First up is the human ego. When someone joins our club, it really inflates our own sense of importance. Second is funding. There is a massive amount of money involved in these efforts, sometimes even tapping into charitable funds. And third, politics. Ultimately, the text points out this universal law. Anything with substantial funding and political backing is inevitably going to become popular, completely regardless of its true spiritual value.
So, where exactly does that leave us when it comes to sharing our beliefs? Well, the source concludes that if we do invite others to our path, it should strictly be rooted in human love. We should share things because we genuinely want to improve other people's lives and alleviate their suffering, not because we're trying to fulfill some sort of divine recruitment quota. It is our job to care for people. It is absolutely not our job to act as God's marketing department. As we wrap up this explainer, we've really seen how grinding through level 1 is what allows us to properly consult with others, hear that divine call through the world, and finally step away from mere tribalism. So, I'm going to leave you with this provocative thought to challenge your own spiritual gameplay going forward. Look closely at your daily practices and your communities. Are you cultivating a true spiritual orientation that centers the divine, or have you just joined another worldly tribe? Thank you so much for learning with us today.